Good morning. This is the first time in my experience that I have been asked to talk on the subject of marriage. I've lived it, but this is the first time I've had an opportunity to talk about it. In this marriage of Alec Kuys and Ann Darling, we have one of the first experiences of students of the infinite way of mature years uniting in marriage and having the opportunity of showing, first of all, to us and then to their world, what a human marriage can be when entered into through spiritual realization, through spiritual relationship. Human marriage itself, as we know it today, is not too successful, but it would be unnatural for it to be successful as marriage is known today, because it is said that in marriage two become one, and that has been interpreted to mean that one or the other loses their identity and their individuality and even their name. Two becoming one does not mean the separation or the loss of individual identity or individuality. For this is an utter impossibility. An individual remains an individual not only from birth to death, but actually long before birth until long, long after death. We never lose our individuality. We never lose our uniqueness. It is an impossibility for an individual to give up, to surrender, or to lose that which constitutes their being. And human marriage tries either to make the man or the woman submit themselves and to surrender that which is most precious in the sight of God, one's individual expression of God's being. Each of us is individual, and each of us has individual qualities. Each of us has individual talents and gifts, and these are not to be surrendered in marriage. These are not to be given up. Therefore, and it struck me as Reverend Paulson spoke that in a spiritual marriage there is not bondage but freedom. But this is not true in human marriage. It is true in spiritual marriage, where each recognizes that in marrying they are setting the other free. This is the only thing that I have discovered in 30 years of this work that will make possible such things as happy marriages, peaceful marriages, successful marriages. The ability to set the other free, and each live their own individual life and yet share with each other without demanding. In human marriage, a husband has certain rights and a wife has certain rights, but in a spiritual marriage this is not true. Neither husband nor wife have any rights. They have only the privilege of loving. They have only the privilege of sharing. They have the privilege of giving, but they have no right to demand anything of another. We do not leave human experience while we hold someone in bondage to our rights. In marriage, in the human world, a husband undertakes the support of a wife. Spiritually, a wife never expects this, because it would be giving up her God-given heritage of maintaining in consciousness her union with God, in which she finds her supply. When she does, the husband is free to share without the bondage of being under the impression that he's legally compelled to do something. None of us likes to do anything under compulsion, whether legal compulsion or moral compulsion. But we all enjoy the freedom of giving. This is natural. No wife feels honored in being called upon to fulfill a duty or an obligation. But every woman must feel, as every man does, the great joy of giving and sharing spontaneously when it is permitted to be free will, an offering of the heart, not of the law court. The return of the prodigal to the Father's house is the mystical marriage, when an individual, under the sense of separation from God, becomes reunited in spirit and finds in the mystical relationship conscious union with God. This is termed the mystical marriage. In other words, man separated from his source is never complete. On the other hand, when an individual finds their conscious oneness with God, they find their oneness with all spiritual being and idea, and this includes every relationship in heaven and on earth. And therefore, the marriage on the human plane is really the consummation of our mystical marriage, our conscious union with God. Without a conscious union with God, no human marriage can endure, because it is not true that in union there is strength, except when we say, in union with God there is strength. When we then individually, man and woman, make our conscious contact with God, we have made our conscious union with our husband or wife, with our children, with our neighbors, with our nation, and with the nations of the world. There is no such thing as strength and union unless The relationship first is union with God. Then we are strengthened in our union with each other on every level of human society. Let no one believe that a marriage is a permanent institution which hasn't first been experienced by both the husband and the wife in their conscious union with God. And then this makes a union between them that is impossible to break. Sometimes it is said in marriage ceremony that what God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. And of course you recognize that this is impossible. What God hath joined together, no man can put asunder. It is an indestructible relationship, that which God has cemented, that which God has united. But there is no unitedness, there is no union except in conscious union with God. And if I may say this to you from personal experience, discords have no way of entering the home or the marriage of the couple that unite in meditation frequently. If this life of the spiritual world, of the spiritual activity, has taught me anything, it is this: that where we unite in meditation, a love develops. There is the love between the teacher and the student, which is indestructible. There is a love between students, which is indestructible. There is a love between man and wife, which is closer than any relationship imaginable. There is a relationship between parent and children that is something not understood in this world, because it is not of this kingdom. A marriage, then, that is not to be a marriage of this world, but is to be a marriage of my kingdom, the spiritual kingdom. A marriage that is not to have the peace that the world can give, but that is to have my peace, must be a marriage that is not only united in spirit, but the union is maintained by constant meditation in which we unite with God and each other. This is the secret of meditation. In meditation, we unite with God. And in uniting with God, we find ourselves united to all mankind, receptive and responsive to the spiritual urge. More so is this true in marriage. In uniting with God, especially where man and wife together unite with God, they find a union or unitedness between themselves which is indestructible, because it is much more than a personal relationship. It rises above even the good of human relationship. It dissolves all that is evil in human relationship. It dissolves all that is sensual, all that is jealous, all that is malicious, all that is demanding. And it becomes the free will gift of God to us and the free will gift of God to each other. There is no such thing as a question that can come into a home that cannot be solved by united meditation, when each enters it not for the purpose of gaining their will or wish or desire, but rather of surrendering their will, wish, and desire, so that the will of God may be made evident. This is the secret. There is no other. Human relationships on every level of life can be harmoniously maintained. Only, however, in the surrender of our will to God, not in the surrender of our individuality to each other. Let us always honor and respect the individuality of the other. Let us remember that no two people have grown from childhood to maturity without developing individual traits of character, of habit, of living. And let us never believe that they can surrender those just because they have entered into marriage. Therefore, even sometimes when the ways, the modes, the means of our partner is not completely that of ourselves, let us lose that and forget that in giving them their freedom to be themselves. And as long as they be themselves in union with God, marriage is an indestructible relationship on earth as it is in heaven. Well, here we are, a group of Infinite Way students meeting to give love and congratulations to Alec and Ann. And so just as the voice of this group, I'm saying congratulations to Alec and to Ann, but I'm going to say just one word more, and that is this. As the word spreads, and it will, all over 5 continents, 6 continents, where Infinite Way students are, and where, because of their coming to classes in so many parts of the world, so many already know Alec and Ann, let me say that the eyes of our students will be upon you. And so an additional responsibility will be upon you to remember that you are showing forth what marriage can mean in the infinite way. Congratulations and blessings.